got shot 9 times. He's still living, and look at him. I know. I do love Dr. Dre, and I love him even more that his stupid wife just took like $1 billion from him.
All right, we're going to start in about 1 minute. 1 minute.
What do they say when they pray? What do they say? I need to pray.
Please ensure your phones are turned off or on silent.
Hello. Yeah.
A note to council members, if you want to talk to your neighbor outside of the committee meetings, your mics are hot. So I had some feedback that they can hear you and not the committee.
Oh.
So
Okay.
just turn your mic off if you're not in that committee and you want to say something.
Oh, we're not allowed to curse.
Also for committee meetings, I just asked the council members, some of you guys have been doing it, to state the council members, the committee members of your council or your committee when you start your committee meeting. All right. Today is February 14th, 2022. Today is a legislative meeting. Before we start with the legislative meeting, we're going to hop into our committee reports for this evening. We're going to start off with City Properties, Parks, and Recreation with Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation is meeting February 14, 2022 at 6:01. All councils are present. The members of my committee is myself as chair, Mr. Thomas Heidick, who is not present, I'm sorry, and Ms. Carol Fry, and also other members noted. We have topics of discussion. We have request legislation. I request a request from Mr. Jaber for a resolution to honor Dorothy Somerville for her continuous service to the City of Barberton and citizens through Barberton Area Community Ministries, Beckham. And we have attached some awesome stuff about her, and if anybody has any questions, please email me, or Mrs. Price will also answer those questions for you. We have, motion for that, please.
I'll make a motion.
I will second that. And a vote, please.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes. Alrighty. And pending legislation, we have none. Open this up for miscellaneous discussion. Committee. Other council members? Alright, anyone else have discussions? Alright. Seeing none, a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
This is Fry. And I will second that. And we are adjourned, sir, at 6:03. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Next up is Public Welfare and Safety with Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is Monday, February 14th. The time is 6:02 p.m. and we are in council chambers. All members of my committee are present, which is myself, Mr. Griffin, and Joyce Coburn. All other council members are present with the exception of Mr. Heidick, who will be here later, and other guests as noted on my agenda sheet. We have no requests for legislation. However, we do have pending legislation, and we have 3 pieces, and all 3 are going to be first reading only. The first is a title prosecutional contract with the City of Green, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3-year contract with the City of Green, whereby the law department will provide prosecutorial services to the City of Green commencing January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. The committee got copies of the contracts, however, they have not been signed yet by the different communities. Therefore, that's why we're only going to have a first reading tonight. And if we have them by the time that we do a second reading, we'll probably go ahead and vote on it. But I don't want to go forward until we do have the signed contracts. The second piece of legislation is titled Prosecutorial prosecutorial agreement, City of New Franklin, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3-year agreement with the City of New Franklin whereby the law department will provide prosecutorial services to the City of New Franklin commencing January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. The third piece of legislation is titled Prosecutorial Administrative Agreement, City of Norton, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3-year agreement with the City of Norton whereby the law department will provide prosecutorial administrative services to the City of Norton commencing January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring emergency. The Norton contract is for administration only. They provide their own prosecutors, but we do all the paperwork, phone calls, what have you. So therefore, their contract is a lot less than that of New Franklin and Green. We have no other items on the agenda for this evening, but does anyone have miscellaneous items they would like to discuss in regard to safety and public welfare? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion to adjourn made by Mrs. Coburn and seconded by
Second.
Mr. Griffin. And we are adjourned at 6:05 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Frack. Next committee up is Rules, Marketing, and Development with Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Myself and Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Heidick is absent right now on this committee. All other council members present. Tonight we have no topics of requests for legislation. Do we have any? We don't have any pending legislation. Do we have any miscellaneous discussion from anybody on the council or from the gallery? No?
Chair.
Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Chair.
Greer.
Is there any feedback on the committee report thing from any council members? Anything? Any updates? Okay. I was just wondering on the committee reports how we were going to forego them or look at the possibility if there's any other input.
No, not at this time.
Thank you, Chair.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I'll second it. We adjourn at 6:08. With that, I pass, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Next committee up is City Utilities with Mrs. Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call City Utilities to order at 6:07 p.m. All members are present, and they are myself, Carol Fry, and Erica Bailey. We have 3 requests this evening. We have a letter from Mr. Weaver, Interim Utilities Director, to allow the mayor to enter into a professional engineering service contract with CT Consultants. This is for, I gotta get them in the right order. This is to prepare, CT Consultants to prepare a no feasible alternative study of secondary treatment bypass at the wastewater treatment plant. The study is required by the Ohio EPA as part of the city's NPDES permit for the plant. The request for proposals were requested from 3 engineering firms, Burgess and Nyepel in the amount of $24,000. CT Consultants came in at $69,300, and GPD did not respond. We're asking for emergency wording in this request in order to keep the project moving forward in a timely manner. If we have any questions, Mr. Weaver is here to answer them. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify that was Burgess and Nyepel for $240,000.
What'd I say?
24? Or is that what it was?
240.
Just for the record,
Those two.
240,000.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Weaver? Hearing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. Our next piece of legislation is a letter from Mr. Weaver, Interim Utilities Director, requesting an ordinance to appropriate $35,000 from the unappropriated item of the water fund to the capital budget of the water fund to purchase a Ford truck. Emergency wording is requested. We need a truck. So does anybody have any questions for Mr. Weaver on this? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion to call for it.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And our third request is a letter from Dennis Weaver, Utilities Director, requesting an ordinance authorizing the appropriation of $50,000 from the unappropriated item of the Norton Sanitary Sewer Construction Fund to the capital budget of the Norton Sanitary Sewer Construction Fund. This appropriation is to pay United Earthworks, the contractor for the Brentwood Package Plant Elimination Project. Emergency is requested on this. Do we have any questions on this one? Hearing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion.
And I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. That also has emergency wording, and we need to, I apologize, we need to refer this to finance, and we also need to refer the last one to finance. We have no pending legislation, and I will open it up for miscellaneous discussion. Anyone on the committee have any? The rest of council? Mr. Greer?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question. It could fall under streets, but I guess utilities works too as well. The sewers, how do the sewers handle with all the ice buildup and damming on the drainage? Is that like an issue with the city at all?
Not with sanitary sewers.
Okay.
Sanitary, it tends to be warm, and it's also underground, fairly deep, 5 to over 20 feet deep. So we don't run into any problems with freezing of sanitary sewers.
Awesome. Thank you. I always wondered, and see them blocked on the side of the road or.
Okay, with that, any other discussion? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
We are adjourned at 6:12.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Mr. Heidick is not here today to chair the Finance and Personnel meeting. However, co-chair, Mrs. Coburn, will be taking the meeting.
As soon as I get through the papers.
All right, take your time.
Thank you, Mr. Britt. I'd like to call to order the Finance and Personnel. It is 6:13, and the members that are present are myself, Taylor Thomason, and Justin Greer. Mr. Heidick plans to come in for the regular meeting. We have a request for an appointment from Mayor Judge to fill the Chief Building Officer's position. Currently, this is an unnamed person. The request is to hire this person at pay grade 7, step 9. We had quite a discussion on this, and if we have any other questions on the pay grade, Mrs. Doherty is here to answer them. Does anybody have any questions on that? Because we'd like to call for this and vote on this tonight. We will be voting on it.
Tonight?
Yes. I thought it was supposed to be tonight.
Yeah, it's
It is.
on there.
Yes.
Would we have to suspend any rules because we're just taking it out?
It's an
No.
appointment.
Yeah, it's that's why I was asking. Yeah, it's just a yay or nay, so,
Yes,
yeah.
okay, okay.
So do I have voting here. We have to vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Our pending legislations are, we have resolution number 13, 2022 to the title commendation, Mr. Larry Charlie Reese, a resolution of council of the city of Barberton honoring and giving public recognition to Charlie Reese for his 35 years of dedicated service to the city of Barberton. The second is ordinance number 14, 2022, presented by Mr. Heidick, authorizing payment, ScanWorks, and ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay an invoice to ScanWorks in the amount of $36,806.49 for scanning project in the Clerk of Courts and declaring an emergency. The third is ordinance 2022, presented by Mr. Heidick, titled Operating and Capital Budget, and ordinance adopting the budget for various funds of the city for the period beginning funds of the city of Barberton for the period beginning January 1st, 2022, and providing for administration thereof and declaring it an emergency. Is this our first reading?
Yes.
First reading. That's going through because we're still discussing. Is there any, now we're going to, are we doing the, that before we do the budget? Jeremy's?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can run however, whatever
Okay,
order.
You're up. You're up, Mr. Mayor. Okay. And Lisa has requested to be first. Mrs. Miller.
Well, I thought mine won't be very long.
I thought you were going to introduce her.
I would like to introduce our lovely Lisa Miller. To go about that.
Yeah, I have a piece of paper.
Hope everyone has their budget books and she'll give us our page number.
At 51. That's the page.
Thank you.
bottom, Jeremy. Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Miller, the floor is yours.
Not exactly sure what the questions might be. The most significant change to my budget would be the addition of an additional prosecutor. We have 3 full-time prosecutors in my office. That was due to a change in courtroom procedures in municipal court. There is a required prosecutor at arraignments now. So prisoners are brought up at 8:30 in the morning. You have to have a prosecutor present there. That takes however long it takes to get prisoners through. Then we do felony arraignments around 11. That lasts however long those last. Then again, 9 o'clock traffic arraignments, and then again, 1 o'clock traffic arraignments. I have to have a prosecutor present at all of those. While those are all going on, pre-trials are also going on before each of the judges. So those cases are assigned to each judge, and each judge has a prosecutor. So the assigned prosecutor to the judge is doing the pre-trials. bench trials, motions to suppress for each judge while arraignments are going on simultaneously. So it's impossible to have a prosecutor do those arraignments as well. So we had to add an additional prosecutor. That changed this year. Well, it actually changed maybe several months ago. We hired that additional prosecutor. So that's primarily the significant change in the budget.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Miller? Hearing none, thank you.
Great.
All right, thank you, City Council. Thank you, Lisa. All right, I'd like to have Mr. Don Patterson, our Director of Parks and Recreation, come up. He's got several different funds to go over, so I think the first one he'll probably start with is administration, which is on page 69.
Again, I have several pages of budget here. I highlighted a few things on here. If you have additional questions, that I'll go through. If you have any additional questions, please ask. The first one was the gym reimbursement. All four of my staff want to take advantage of the gym reimbursement. There's a Y right next to us. They actually give Tammy a hard time working here, so we just want to give memberships for the staff. Next one down is the $3,000 for training and travel. We actually just got back from the Ohio Parks and Recreation Conference. It was last Monday through Wednesday. All the full-timers went. Great event. Several classes we went to. Actually found some contractors and worked on some of our projects. So I think, and just some additional trainings we need. I know I need all my water certifications for over to Lake and the staff. So that's a change in the budget. And then memberships, 7,200. That is our new registration software that we're using through Ability. And then at the bottom, the 77,000. 70 of it is for the splash pad at Edgewood, and then 7 is to add disc golf course at Tusk and at Edgewood. Any questions on this page?
I just kind of missed what you said. You said the 7,200 was for new software for
Yes.
memberships?
Yes.
Okay.
That's actually for everything. You can register for our classes online, written reviews, things like that. So just getting us up to speed.
Okay, thank you.
So the splash pad is going to be $70,000 to repair?
Yes.
Is it going to be indestructible?
Yeah, I worked on some things like the rubber flooring. We don't need that. So I got our guys internally. They're going to scrape that up to see the condition of it under there. There's a concrete pad, and then we're just going to either paint it or recondition that concrete pad. A lot of places don't use that rubberized flooring. I looked up pricing on that. It's roughly like $90,000 for it, and they only have a 5 or 10 year life. So that's why it's pilling up now. So we're going to just go with the concrete for that.
Thank you.
You got a question?
Yeah, the membership software, are we anticipating more programs
Oh, yes,
to
yes.
come in?
We added indoor volleyball. It started 2 weeks ago. I'm working with the school on adult basketball league. We have we're going to ramp up our program. I want to do some dodgeball. And with our new special events coordinator, we just add more events. Want to ramp up the Christmas event, do something for that. Even like our Easter, we plan on possibly having an adult Easter egg hunt and things like that. So just ramping up our program.
We want to be involved in that. Is there money prizes?
Yeah.
No, I'm just,
We're actually going to try to involve the downtown businesses with our adult Easter egg hunt.
Thank you.
That's a question I'm going to ask about Christmas and Easter. A lot of residents and constituents were asking about that. I really like that when they did that before the Easter
There-
egg hunt.
There's actually one down at Wolf Creek Winery that sells out every year. They do multiple adult Easter egg hunts that, I mean, they sell it months ahead of time. It's a good idea.
Thank you.
My next page is page 70. Everything's pretty much the same. I guess the number that probably will stick out is the 20,000 for the cleaning supplies. That is the contract that we have with the YMCA. I actually did my homework. I thought it was a little high. And I reached out to a couple other companies and they're actually higher than that. So that price is kind of what it is. It actually was lower. Any other questions on page 70? Okay, page 71 is the next page. Again, everything is the same except for the fireworks. Fireworks actually went up on us. 15 is a little bit more than one of the quotes, but we're working on getting some additional quotes. Again, I met 2 vendors at the Ohio Parks and Rec Conference that we're going to reach out to. Anything else on page 71?
No.
Director, I actually have a question.
Oh, sorry.
The contractual services
Yeah.
for that large increase, what is, can you explain that?
Mainly, we use that for the few things. Tree removal is our big one. That's like a nonstop thing for me. And then emergency Ohio geese control. We've been working internally to try to work on getting the geese out off the lake. 'Cause they did a good job until probably like right after Monfest, they started taking back over there. So we're gonna get on top of that.
Thank you.
Next page will be 102. Your numbers are pretty much repeat from last year, except for the 43,000 on repair and maintenance and supplies. That is for a Ventrac. We will use that as well as the streets department. There's numerous ways you can use that machine: snow removal, field maintenance, cutting grass on steep hills, things like that. So that'll be a good addition to both of our departments. Anything else on 102?
Anyone have any questions?
All right, next page will be 110. Big number that sticks out on that one is the 30,000. That is for our seasonals. This past summer, we only used a little over 12,000 of it. Expect to maybe use a little bit more just because we're ramping up programming. We plan on doing 2 summer camps. Summer camp with the schools kind of threw a wrench in our plans last year where it was totally free. They were picking them up from home with busing and feeding them. So it kind of wiped out our camp. So we're planning to do something around their dates and also do mainly concentrate on doing activities on the water. So that number will be increase with staff. Questions? 111. Increase on the general recreation again, just because we plan on doing more programming with the equipment, paying officials, people, staff to work and things like that. And the other big number is 26,000 for the summer concerts, and that's just what it is. It's with our night concerts and our Wednesdays. We plan on possibly switching the day and time of the Wednesday. We're kind of involved in some type of food truck involvement with that too. And we still will have during the day concert. Go ahead.
Mr. Patterson, the special programs, what do you have in special programs? There's a 5,000 and last year you only used 900, but what is a special program?
That's mainly for Tammy and her field trips that she used for the seniors. She usually take them. Again, we didn't open up until June, so that's why most of it wasn't used.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right, next page is 130. Numbers that stick out to you are down in the donation expenditures and month celebrations. And that's just the increase on pricing. And then our cuttings for our garden, we used to get them donated. We actually got to pay for those now, as well as the pricing that's going on. We're going back and forth with one of our vendors. Their shipping went from $700 to like $2,200. So just trying to get that worked out, but just everything is going up like most items right here. Any questions on this? All right, then the last one will be page 174. Get everything on this page in uniform with last year. Just a lot of our numbers are kind of down. We're down last year because we were open until, that's why there was some overages in a lot of those accounts. Any questions?
Seeing none?
I have one, Mrs. Copeland.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Are we going to have any big construction projects at parks as far as shelters or anything like that?
I'm working on that. There's a list of items I wanted to add to the budget that the mayor wants me to use an American Rescue Plan Act for. So I'm working on getting quotes and filling out the application to get to him. The main thing is that splash pad over at Edgewood. We also discussed possibly adding an additional splash pad somewhere in the city. Those will probably be our bigger projects, as well as refurbishing the tennis courts. We'll probably refurbish one or two and then repurpose one or two for pickleball.
I just had a question regarding the splash pad. Is it a safety issue to not have rubber?
No.
Oh, you can just have concrete?
Yeah, a lot of them. I mean,
okay.
The splash pad, I was just, from the community I was just working on was on.
Oh, okay, okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you do have questions, of course, you can email
Yes, feel
any
free
of the
to,
department heads, and they will answer all of us.
Yeah, and as you can see, seeing a trend here of basically everything going up, from not only the normal products and things that we use in our operations, but also things like shipping cost. And the fireworks one, we padded that a little bit. It's been about $8,000 for the last 15 years. And the quotes started coming in a lot more. So we started looking at, do we shorten the firework experience, the event, and different types of fireworks used. So we're still getting that information. I mean, just getting quotes back is tough because they don't know the vendors if they can get the merchandise. So, and a lot of vendors aren't holding their price. we'll get a quote, it's good for 6 months or what have you. They're not holding the price at all, so it's very difficult to put a budget together in January, have you guys discuss it in February and pass it in March, and the prices have changed quite a bit.
Yep.
So, a few more that I've got planned for today. Want to talk about the building department, that's on page 66. So, as you know, we are looking to hire a CBO. We had a retirement, and looking to beef that program, or that department up in terms of property maintenance inspectors. So we have gone out to solicit resumes for at least two additional property maintenance inspectors. Not all their wages are found here because they're split between several funds. But in this case, you can see that we did put some additional money into the property maintenance inspector line item, from right around just under $12,000 to $25,000. Rental registration will help with that as well. Increase on the secretary and slight increase on the building inspector line item as well. About the same for all the others, professional services, training and travel. It may seem like this year's budget across the board in all departments, training and travel is a little higher than what was actually used in the past. We try to budget for what was used in pre-COVID days, and at some point we will get back to in-person trainings. Like Mr. Patterson said, they had one last week. But it's really up to each organization or agency on how they handle those trainings. And some of the trainings are required to keep your certification depending on what department you're in. But any questions on the building department budget? Yes.
How much estimate revenue increase with the rental registration increase in fees did we bring in this year? I know this was a year ago.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you tonight. If you recall, when council passed the increase, at least on the rental registration aspect, you have until the end of March to pay. I can pull those records for as of today, but I'm assuming that it's not very high. But in the next few weeks, that could change quite a bit. So they have till the end of March to pay their rental registration.
Thank you.
And then on the fees for permits and inspections, I don't have an estimate. Yes.
The office supplies and other, that went up 70%. And what is that?
Just generating more letters to get out. Everything has to be certified these days. So if you recall, a few years ago, we gave all of our property maintenance inspectors iPads so they can spend more time in the field, taking pictures and logging things in the system. Well, things still have to be generated on paper. So they can send all that information to the secretaries, the clerks. They can generate a written letter and send that out. So it's really helped this past year providing zones for the inspectors. So now they're in one single area and can really concentrate. The good side is that it increases the number of violations that they can cite people because they're in one central area. It increased the cost a little bit because we're generating more letters.
Yeah.
So, and some of these increases, we just don't know what's going to happen with items like paper, business cards. We've seen go up in price. Separate from the printing and all those things, but just the shipping. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Todd, if you want to go over, I can dive into another budget, but if you want to do collections and distribution.
It doesn't, whatever order you want to go, Mayor. I mean, I can jump up there and do collection and distribution now. Parks maintenance, streets, I mean, whatever you wanna do.
Let me run into permissive funds a little bit,
Okay.
and then we do the others. Page 85. So this is a permissive license tax fund, where we get your tags every year. Part of that money comes back to the city, and it can only be used on certain streets. Streets that have been designated as permissive streets, and these are mostly main streets in town. So if you recall, several years ago, the governor allowed municipalities to pass a resolution or an ordinance to increase the fee. Barberton was one, like many, who did that. So we collect an increased amount from years past. This money budgeted this year to collect $235,000 in addition to the carryover from last year. Some of the projects that this money will be used for: Eastern Road paving. If you recall, we've been talking for a few years. Eastern Road is one of those kind of odd roads that kind of cuts off in the south end of town and picks back up on the other side of PPG. We own like a quarter of the road. The rest of it's the Coventry Township, which the county maintains, and the rest is New Franklin. So trying to get everyone on the same page to pave and split the cost during COVID was not easy, but we're there. So that's where $150,000 on page 86 at the bottom, kind of in the middle there. We'll go for that. Worcester Road State Street intersection. That's a ODOT project. So we put in $325,000 for that intersection and $619,000 to be repaved from State Street moving north to East Avenue. That'll be done this year. Yes.
Thanks, sir. On these projects, have you guys looked into roundabouts at all, or and what was the?
I already did that.
Yeah. Most of these projects are ones that we applied for 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Right.
And there's all kinds of data that you have to provide if you want a roundabout. It's a safety feature. So we've looked at that in the past at different intersections. If you've been out to Green, that's all they have out there. There's a few more coming. But yeah, we've looked at that, and it won't be included in any of these projects, but for future projects, we're looking at that.
And everybody always, on social media, everybody talks about them, but they really work really well, I mean, for safety. I mean,
I mean, if
makes
we went
traffic
out to
smooth.
Parkville and got caught, had 2 or 3 of them, and thought, what kind of a waste is it? And you get stuck at a traffic light for 2 minutes, and the next thing you know, you're still at the same traffic light, because it's gone through a cycle. So they really do help keep the traffic flowing. The one complaint I get on those is from truck drivers.
Right.
I hate
So
them.
you've got to have a phone in from Councilwoman Angela. So, there's a place and point of time where it makes sense, and other places where it don't.
I hate them.
And then 4th Street, $20,000 out of permissive for engineering. If you recall, we received a grant from through AMATS from the federal government to do 4th Street downtown from Barber Road to the dead end of Lake Anna in the coming years. So this $20,000 will go towards the engineering for that. And that still provides us a very small balance, fund balance of $38,000, just over $38,000 in that fund. Yes.
Thanks, Mayor. For Eastern Road, I'm just going to put it out there, the flooding over there, is that the flooding drainage issue that's on Eastern budgeted into that?
No, it's just resurfacing. We have talked to some of the property owners, the main one being PPG to the south, about restoring some of the ditch lines there and making sure so the water's got somewhere to go. The street doesn't really sit that much higher than the ground, so. And then you have some areas where it makes sense the water should be going because there's no homes or anything there to really get in the way. That will not be a part of the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions on Mr. Jabers?
No, quick question we're talking about the water on Eastern Road. Can we pass something or make it where they have to, every few years, dig up that ditch on their property line? Is there something we can do or pass? Because I mean, right, like you said, Eastern Road, not to cut you off, some of the spots are, they haven't dug up, I mean, it's just flat.
Yeah.
I think if we get them to help out with that, have the water going in there, it might help out just a little bit, but just enough. Can we pass something through council?
For that road, no. I would say no. I don't know for sure, but since that road is so chopped up between New Franklin, Barberton, and the county, most likely no. In other areas, I'm not sure. You know, there's typically a right-of-way, which, you know, possibly we could do that, but it would fall on us. So there's a lot of kind of steps to take to find out and confirm an answer with that.
Thank you.
Because you have to make sure that, you know, water goes off somewhere, and then where does it go from there? You know, where's the outflow at? Maybe the Tusk River nearby, but I don't know if you have enough fall there to get to the Tusk River. So you ask a simple question, but the answer is very complex.
Right. I mean, I know. It'd be nice, but.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to point out that that section of road that we're talking about is the worst section of the road where it floods. The rest, some of it is good, but it's, you know, I just would hate to pave it and then have it fall apart again because it floods all the time. So that's why I was asking.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. I can go to the streets, and
Okay.
I don't want to take any time away from you. Let me see what today's streets is. Let's go to page 72 for parks maintenance, since I've got that written down. on this spreadsheet. So, trying to beef up our seasonals. With council's help, we increased the wage last year, if you recall that. Still had difficulty finding enough seasonals to really do the things that we want to do in our parks during the summer season. But we put just over $37,000 in for seasonal maintenance. Looking to, we have a test right now that we gave last year to hire full-timers. So we're still working through that process. Everything else is pretty much status quo there. Down at capital outlay, $30,000 under buildings. We've got, I hate to say this, but similar to city council chambers, we've got a roof leak down at the maintenance garage. So we put $30,000 in there to fix that. $14,000 for a new mower that can be used in our parks. And then the $70,000 is for a 1-ton dump truck. Over the last few years, we've really tried to, citywide, improve our fleet. They just keep getting more expensive, and they don't last nearly as long as we would hope. Our mechanics do a great job. They're not they don't work on the bodies all that much, but they do a great job with what they have, so keeping our fleet going. Any questions on park maintenance? I have spoken to the bargaining unit, the union, and I'll be getting in touch with all council members, but we want to put together some volunteer opportunities to help clean up our parks. You know, I've been for a while trying to make our parks more attractive to everyone. You know, I hear from people that, hey, I live across the street from this park, but I don't have kids, so I don't go to the park. Or I haven't been there since my kids moved out of the house. Well, parks are for everyone. It's just not for basketball, soccer, jungle gyms, things like that. So I want to make sure we're utilizing our parks to the fullest. So whether that's, you know, we started a few years ago, concerts in the park, and kind of rotated that. If it's that, or it's art shows, or it's exercise classes, or what have you. We've got these beautiful parks, neighborhood parks, we need to make use of them. And I think if people put in a little sweat equity, and I know there's a lot of interest in doing that, they're more apt to kind of be a part of utilizing the park in the future. So I'll be in touch with council over the next few weeks with that. Any other questions? All right. I'll turn it over to Mr. Shreve, who will talk streets, collection and distribution.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start on page 77, street capital. So that's going to have, so at the top is gonna be our revenue, it's gonna show our taxes, withholding. So if there's any questions on any of this, I'm gonna probably refer to Jim, our finance director. He can help answer some of those questions. If you wanna flip to the next page, 78. And let's go down through, so project engineering, so some of this is just general. So as things happen, stuff comes up. Last year we had a big water main break on 4th Street. It destroyed part of the road. So we had to dip into some funds and pay part of that road. So project engineering, infrastructure, asphalt, infrastructure, concrete, those are all monies for unforeseen things. Some of it will go to projects that we have on the books. And then if you look, we've got PID 106-539, which Road Robinson. That's construction costs. All of the top two AMH, or the top two ones there are construction. Worcester Road North resurfacing, that's construction. And then the bottom three are all engineering costs for those three projects. Any questions on page 78? 79 shows the end of the fund. So if there's not any questions on capital improvement, we'll go right to the streets fund, page 81. So page 81 is our revenue. Again, those are gas tax, undivided auto tax, money that comes in, transferred from income tax. Next page, 82, our wages. So with the wages, you're going to see an increase. Contractual agreements this year, we eliminated the labor, there was E1, so a little bump in wages there. We're looking at adding a couple of employees in this department too to help boost our workforce. So all of the personal services are going to increase a little bit with those additions. Operating maintenance. So like Don kind of alluded to, tree removal is a big thing right now. Tree removal, tree trimming, street side trees, all that stuff. So that's why the increase there on the top line. It's not cheap to get some of that stuff done. And some of it's outside of what our guys can handle skill-wise. We're not professional tree removal service like Barberton Tree would be. Contracted services, you can see we spent $9 grand, almost 10 grand on that last year, so that's kind of status quo. Repair and maintenance. If we look down through there, I guess most of those are pretty status quo across the board. Repair and maintenance supplies went up. We spent actual 9 grand last year. We went to 14. But again, cost of everything has increased with manufacturing, with shipping, with that kind of stuff. Motor maintenance supplies, again, the increase there. Trucks are aging, parts are getting more expensive. You know, iron, metal, stuff like that, we're seeing increases in. Salt, we budgeted $187,000 this year. We've already put in an order. We ordered, I want to say it was 1,000 ton already, just to make up for what we've used over the last several events. It has been delivered. Our salt supply right now is looking really good. So we should be all right moving forward if we get any more storms. Street repairing materials, again, that cost is volatile. You know, the asphalt cost, concrete costs, all those prices seem to keep going up. And then some fuel station, gas and oil, everything else is pretty status quo there. Any questions on page 82? Page 83, buildings. Again, so we split the roof repair between a couple. I know the mayor spoke about the parks maintenance fund having roof repair. There's also some money there in this budget to help with that shared building. Equipment and furnishings, they're looking at some new updated ball field maintenance equipment, and I believe I forget how big the mower is, but it's a big 114-inch mowing deck or something to help mow some of the big areas. And then vehicle-wise, they're needing some pickups just to keep updating their service. So the debt service at the bottom, those are capital lease, those are the big dump trucks, 5 tons. And again, I could probably, if you have any real questions on the leasing process, Jeremy can probably answer that. So if there's no questions on 83, we'll move on to the next. All right, so now we're going to go back in the book a little ways. Page 149. So 149 is our collection system. So that is our sanitary sewer collection department down off of Snyder. So again, top personal services. You're going to see some slight increases there, and that's a lot of that's with contractual obligation, you know, and the removal of labor. Operating and maintenance, training and travel. We've got a couple of guys down there, you know, that have backflow license, water license, sewer license, that kind of thing. So training and travel helps with that. Professional services. Any kind of, so for the collection department, any kind of heavy root cleaning or heavy debris removal, stuff like that, that we just don't have the equipment, that would fall under professional services. Televising, we do have our own camera. When you get to a large enough piece of pipe, we can't always accommodate. Trying to see if there's any big changes down through there. If we go down to capital, so under buildings, so the mayor and I have been discussing, and we're looking and pursuing a joint service center. So you're going to see some increases in the possibility of buildings there, just because we're pursuing a combined service center. Under equipment and furnishings, 65,000. That's a pickup truck. Or no, that's not a pickup truck. That's a 1-ton. They're in need of a heavier duty 1-ton down there. And then vehicles is the pickup, 30,000. And then infrastructure sewer lines. Those are sewer lines, again, kind of like roadways. You don't always expect a water main to blow up and bust the road. Every now and then you have a sewer collapse or some other intrusion, whether it be roots, whether it be just a broken tile. So we like to keep a little bit of money set aside to improve infrastructure when an emergency happens. Were there any questions on 149? Yes, sir, President.
Thank you. The buildings, the joint service building, can you elaborate on that? Is that joint service internal services or joint service like different city?
It's going to be joint service, so internal, so water, sewer, streets, parks maintenance. We're pursuing the opportunity to possibly look at a service center that's going to house basically all of our employees to help provide a more streamline service, maybe some cross-training across employees, again, to help better the services we can provide to citizens.
And what will we be doing with the old buildings?
So that's part of this process we're looking into, is which site we want to look at using, because we have two separate sites that both have some land. So we're doing a study, so as far as what would be done with the land afterwards, I can't answer that at this time. But we're definitely looking into some options.
Just a heads up, the garage needs some work. Or tore down.
Well, again, we've talked about, I don't know how many different funds now that we've said that we're using for the roof. So I do know that there is a need for work there.
And there's some buildings that you're moving.
The Armory, the community foundation owns that, correct? And would that be one site right there where you guys want to expand in that property, or is
The
it?
foundation has that site for sale right now.
Right, there's a bid on that already. They're just waiting for finances to go through on that one. Is there another,
Well, the street department behind it to the south, that would be one site, and the utility site. Center.
now does that sale come through city afterwards? Not through council at all?
No, separate parcel, separate everything. You mean of the armory?
Yes.
Yeah, totally separate. If we were to dispose of city buildings, that would come in front of council.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, that's it for collection. Yep, so now we're going to go ahead and go to distribution. Which is on page 156. A few more pages down. And with personal services again, contractual increases. Don't believe there's anything else that's really going to jump out of there. Training and travel, again, licenses and certifications. Professional services. This is a line item that we don't always know, again, how much we're going to use or where it's going to be useful at. But we do have leak locating equipment, we have some other things, but there's times that the equipment we have just isn't I don't want to say
Adequate.
adequate, but it's, there's an expert out there that can come in and find a leak. So professional services helps out with that kind of thing. Operating support. Operating supplies is going to increase again with, right now what we're running into, I just had a manager meeting this morning, and brass and copper parts, stainless steel parts, anything that's metal, not only is it expensive, but it's hard to get, and it's hard to get shipped here. So we keep a pretty good stock of supply parts on the shelf, but I know it's, as far as ordering things, it's a concern. Being able to get it here. So we're trying to stay on top of keeping it ordered and keeping it on the shelves, and we like to keep designated space, warehouse space, so we can keep that kind of stuff. Repair and maintenance supplies is up a little bit from last year to this year, again, and it's just an increasing cost. Maintenance of vehicles is up. Any questions on page 156? All right, on 157 is our capital. Equipment line, you're going to see, so last several years, we didn't have anything in the equipment line. I added that this year to the budget to include our water meters and MIUs, which in my eyes is a capital investment. If you look at how many homes and businesses and stuff we have in town, every one of those has a water meter in it. Those water meters are expensive, so why not have a line item so that we can designate and purchase those capital pieces of equipment that generate revenue. We're metering the water with those water meters and generating revenue, so I feel that they deserve their own line. Building again, joint service center, so that's why you'll see the big increase there. equipment and furnishings, so that 20,000 is we're looking at an air compressor. So in order to maintain the water lines, we pump water with the air compressor. We do our water taps with the air compressor. It's a tool that goes out on every job with the water guys. And then 70,000 is a portion of that 1 ton and I don't have my notes right in front of me, but that's another piece of equipment that the water garage is necessary for daily operations. And then infrastructure water lines. So this is a line item too that we keep in there. We haven't had to use it, as you can see. We spent 77,000 of it last year, but again, it's one of those where you don't ever want a water main to blow up from block to block, but it can happen. If we had a catastrophic failure, we want to have money in place to tackle that when it happens. So, anybody have any questions on page 157? Yes, ma'am.
The 20,000 for that's just one air compressor? Is that what you're looking at? One?
Yes, so, and those aren't, it's not just an everyday normal air compressor, it's a tow behind, it hooks on the back of the truck. We have 3 of them in the garage right now. They're all from the late 80s, early 90s, so they've got some age on them. We've got our money's worth out of them, but it's time to have one good one that we can rely on. With the new service truck that was ordered 2 years ago, it's coming fully equipped with air, electric, and hydraulics on it. It's been on order. We've been waiting on it to be manufactured. I just talked to the supplier the other day, and it's coming in May. So we will finally have a truck on the ground.
That has one.
Yep.
I've seen that operate. That's kind of interesting there. So we have 3 old ones. They do work.
They work. And then again, like the mayor, he complimented our mechanics earlier. They do a heck of a job on keeping things on the road and functional. So.
Okay.
Any other questions with the distribution? All right. Mayor, you want me to cover any other?
That's all I have for tonight. Then I've got for next week scheduled courts, which is, they've got multiple funds. And for newer council members, there's certain state rules that go with each fund and how the money can be used, so that may take some time. Stormwater next week, wastewater treatment plant and water treatment plant. And then, there's other funds that we can dive into that are as large as these. But that's all I have scheduled for today. And if there's any questions on anything, whether we've covered the department or the fund or not, again, feel free to email us and we'll get you those answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremy, are you ready to go over this with us? We'll go over the finance report.
Mr. Flaker, can you step up to the microphone, please? Thank you. Sorry, we changed how we record, so it's...
Lori, do you have an extra finance report for us?
I didn't get one.
At the very end of everything.
No, I took all mine apart and put it the way I wanted it. So, thank you.
Okay, Jeremy, the floor is yours.
All right. Starting with the health insurance fund. For the month of January, the revenues were $34,443, expenditures $35,200. That's a net year-to-date of a negative $756. These revenues and expenditures are low compared to previous months because it was a healthcare holiday for the city. So we weren't charging the departments or employees for healthcare. And the payment to Summit County just came out of the reserve that we had up there. We had a good year this past year of healthcare, so to basically reward the employees for a good year, we decided to take a healthcare holiday. Moving on to the income tax fund, The estimate for the month of January was $960,000. Our actuals came in at just shy of $954,000. That puts us under our estimate by about $6,000. If you compare it to 2021, you'll notice the 2021 we were $125,000 under our estimate. Don't want to read too much into 2021, just for the main fact that you all were aware, we switched from CCA to RETA last year, so part of that low number is, I think, because of that switch at that time. We did transfer $1 million from the income tax fund to the general fund. Moving on to the statement of cash receipts and disbursements, we have a few funds in the negative. First fund in the negative is the FEMA fund, Fund 239. As I stated in previous months, that is mostly the flood mitigation on 14th Street, 15th Street, and Arthur down on the south end. Those are those three streets. Basically, we have to expend the money before FEMA will reimburse us. Next fund in the negative is the CDBG fund. That's the HUD grant. Once again, we have to expend the money for them to reimburse us for it. And those were the only two funds in the negative at that time. Last 3 months of activity, you will notice that the general fund went down by about 500. The unencumbered cash balance went down by about 500,000. A lot of that has to deal with the encumbrances going up some more. So special revenue funds, you'll notice that those have stayed about the same. Enterprise funds dipped down by about 500,000. Most of that is due to the encumbrances outstanding. You'll notice increased by about 500,000. All other funds, you'll notice it dipped down by about 380,000. A lot of that has to deal with, once again, the encumbrances going up by about 400,000. So a lot of these is just, since the encumbrances increased, is why we have the unencumbered cash balances decreasing. And then comparing last year, January of last year to January of this year, you'll notice the unencumbered cash balance for the general fund is down by almost 2.7 million compared to this time last year. Basically, we used up the CARES Act money. And so we're moving on from the CARES Act now. There is the American Rescue Plan money, which is where you'll notice the special revenue funds went up by about 10 million. Like I said, that's due to the American Rescue Plan money. Enterprise funds, you'll notice, went up by about 1.2 million. A lot of that has to deal with just due to COVID in 2020, our revenues were down for water and sewer bills. And this, in 2020, we could start collecting on them again. So that's why the 2021 balance is low, and 2022 went up because we were able to collect on that, on those monies. Plus, the encumbrances outstanding also decreased. So between those two things, that's why you see an increase of about 1.2 million. All other funds, that is, if you look at the unencumbered cash balance, it's down by about 437,000. A lot of that is just the encumbrances outstanding. You'll notice the encumbrances outstanding went up by about 700,000. So, and with that, that's all I have. Any questions?
Sounds good. Okay. I don't have the page for the voting for this.
No, she didn't have it on here. That's another reason I didn't even look for it, because it was on. No, it's on the
agenda to call for it, but I don't have a page to vote.
You don't. You don't vote on that.
No.
To accept it?
Yeah, you do. You vote
Yeah,
to
we vote to
it.
accept it and call for it. But I don't have that page in this packet.
We'll just make one.
I'll make it up.
Yeah.
It just was saying. Do I have a motion to call for the finance report as reported?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that passes and we'll be calling for that. I don't think we have any other miscellaneous discussion tonight for finance. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion made by Ms. Thompson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We are adjourned at 7:14.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn, for covering down. That concludes the committee meetings for this evening. We're going to take probably a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll come back and start our legislative meeting.
Thank you.
Put these out.
And there's my.
What else going on, Mr. Griffin?
Thank you.
Trying to survive, that's all.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. There's substantial. This is 21, so we got 21 prices. So and since it wasn't, you had money as comfort, we didn't they did what they did. You know, they ordered it.
New technology?
I lose it sometimes. It'll say, no send card. And then you have to turn it off and turn it back on. You like a reboot yourself, you know?
There's a spare one up there as well. There should be unless somebody took it. If not, they're all in the file. I'm gonna run down and make Carol a copy of this.
Hey, Mr. Griffin, come here. Here's what I get a phone call. Listen. Like that. This one, you understand this one.
Well, when I was talking about it, I was looking at you, I was waiting for you to turn around.
I know, I was gonna say. Because I have pretty good what I do. I have pretty good. I just need to get a couple more, down there to help out. So, and those turnabouts or whatever, I call them turnabouts. I say that just right to keep your sneezing around. I said, I don't know what they are, but I hate them, they're crazy. And I was just out there, I mean, I
the one downstairs.
when I'm thinking, oh my God, you got to go, just drive fast. I go, I don't drive fast though. They're a good thing, but I hate them. They are a good thing, but I hate them.
Yeah, they've got their place.
Yes.
If you have a meter on that building, they charge you minimum. You're not. So eventually,
I'm starting to. Yeah, that's why I have to wear earrings, because they do get caught on there. I'm starting to highlight some. Those are pretty though. They are kind of pretty. They're red. I would wear them. Well, I don't. Like I said, I'll probably get a new pair soon, because I don't wear them. I wear small boots, but I like the wide backs. I'll have to start reading these.
Certain number of
Just to work.
just have a title.
Did anybody?
Okay?
Turn
Her parents don't let her go to the church.
No,
It's a strong enough
it
title.
says work. You have to have an office or you have to, because we were looking at it. It's got to be a little more. If she moved out of town, this got to be some consideration. They weren't happy with that.
Yeah, this was from Planning Commission. That's what that's from.
I'm doing well. You did a good job.
We tabled everything. I'm sure it's. Trevor was live before.
Yes.
And he was down.
So, we went to the end of the
Oh, so bad. He's like reading all this
But at the same time, in order to,
Just so you're on track. Like, with the that's where they got the so they were all extreme I think they oh yeah. On there, I would think so. I mean, they slower down here. You can get those calls, man.
You're popular.
Oh, you see that? They're jealous of my hairline.
Okay, you say so.
Are you gonna open your lifesavers?
No.
I want one. I just want one.
I like the
Okay. I've been eyeballing them. I haven't had these in like 15 years.
I get tired of it. I like chocolate, but I don't like the old.
Do you guys have Neckos? Do you sell Neck? You need to. So Barberton Hospital used to sell them, like old school Neckos. It was a hot feature. I honestly don't even know if they make them. What about cream savers? Is that a thing anymore? It's gone?
Which one's that?
Oh, those were hot. No, they're
Hey, Mr. Bill.
in the 2000s. They were popular. There you go. Thank you.
For Southampton.
estimates, the final estimates, can meet last week, so.
Okay. I hope we can do it. I hope we can do it. Oh, I know it's a big job. Yeah.
And conduit for
Yeah. But like coming into the city though, that would just make it look, you know, you check the thorough, and coming into Worcester Road, Van Buren, Barber Road, Worcester, by the Indian statue, you know, all the ways coming into Barberton. Like I said, Miss Fennell mentioned that to me, I don't know how many years ago. You know, and she was saying like, yeah.
I can't believe it's never fixed when school was over.
I know.
Buses, parents.
I know.
I guess everything else was pretty more rural.
Yeah, and it was just on the bottom of the list, that's all. Developing someplace else, that's all, and you run out of room, now you...
It looked nice, it was nice and straight.
Oh, hell yeah, it looked good. You get rid of a couple houses down there. I called up today and go to the spot, that one house is boarded up right there, 455. It's boarded up to tear down, people going in the back door, they done tore down the barricades or whatever. And yeah, the lady next door, Becky, she called me, she told me, Mr. Griffin, there's two men and a woman come out of the back. She said, I think they knocked down and took down the barricades or whatever. But anyway, Marcia, she said, we got two of them in the town, and she reported it and everything. I left a message, yeah. That's why I told this lady, Becky, I said, call the police. You know, that's the best, that's the quickest way, instead of calling me, because by the time I get, you know, go through, just call the police. Let them come out, you know. Did you know that, that house sold on, Haven, that big house? Josh Ferguson bought that?
So there's just the.
Yeah.
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 No, that's good.
Like,
Thank you.
less than 150,000.
All right, we're going to begin in like 5 seconds. Let's go.
Where's my dinner?
I don't know.
We have one comment that says VUM period today. I'm old, I don't understand the spelling.
What?
I don't know. All right. Just want to remind everybody to put their phones on silent or turn them off. This is a regular legislative meeting of Barberton City Council. Today is Monday, February 14th, 2022. It is 7:29 p.m. Please stand for the pledge, followed by the invocation with Mrs. Bailey. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gracious Father and God, thank you, Lord, for the blessings you have bestowed upon us. I ask that as we meet today, you please grant us all a servant's heart to serve our constituents to the best of our abilities. Also, I ask that you grant us wisdom to serve them wisely. Bless us, Lord, with the spirit of cooperation to work together as one body for the betterment of the entire community. As always, Lord, I ask that you bless our first responders and our military. Keep them safe, watch over us now, and guide our words and actions to your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
President Greer.
Present.
Mrs. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Heidick.
Here.
Mrs. Bailey.
Here.
Mrs. Angela.
Here.
Mr. Griffin.
Here.
Mr. Jaber.
Here.
Mrs. Coburn. Here. Mrs. Frye.
Here.
Thank you. Because of today being Valentine's Day, I am going to entertain a motion to invoke Council Rule 702 to suspend Council Rule 203B, bullet point number 2, for Councilman Heidick because he came in from work, and that is the section suspending the tire in the council rules. So, is there a motion to suspend?
It's red.
Motion made by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second? And seconded by Mrs. Coburn. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mrs. Coburn to suspend Council Rule 702, or to invoke Council Rule 702 to suspend Council Rule 203B, bullet point 2, attire. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you all.
Approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes of the special legislative executive session held on Saturday, January 22nd, 2022, as presented. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I motion for the approval of the minutes of the special session, executive session held on Saturday, January 22nd, 2022, as presented.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to second Mr. Heidick's motion on approval.
Thank you. It was moved by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Thompson to approve the minutes of the special session with executive session held on Saturday, January 22nd, 2022, as presented. Are there any remarks? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are adopted. Approval of the minutes of the regular legislative meeting held on Monday, January 24th, 2022, as presented. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular legislative meeting held on Monday, January 24th, 2022, as presented.
Thank you. And Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to second Mr. Heidick's motion on approval.
Thank you. It was moved by Mr. Hayek and seconded by Mrs. Thompson to approve the minutes of the regular legislative meeting held on Monday, January 24th, 2022, as presented. Are there any remarks? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are adopted. Approval of the minutes of the executive session held on Monday, February 7th, 2022, as presented. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I motion for the approval of the minutes of the executive session held on Monday, February 7th, 2022, as presented.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to second Mr. Heidick's motion on approval.
Thank you. It was moved by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Thompson to approve the minutes of the executive session held on Monday, February 7th, 2022, as presented. Are there any remarks? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are adopted. Acceptance of the finance report for the month of January 2022, as presented. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I motion to accept the Finance Department report for the month of January 2022 as presented.
Thank you. Mrs. Coburn?
I'll second that motion for acceptance.
Thank you. It was moved by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Colburn to accept the finance report for the month of January 2022 as presented. Are there any remarks? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The finance report is adopted. Petition and claims.
We have none.
Thank you. Matters requested.
They have all been distributed.
Thank you. Citizens addressing council.
None.
Thank you. First readings of ordinances and resolutions.
Resolution number 13-2022, presented by Mr. Jaber. Title, Commendation, Mr. Larry Charlie Reese. A resolution of the Council of the City of Barberton honoring and giving public recognition to Mr. Larry Charlie Reese for his 35-plus years of dedicated service to the City of Barberton.
Motion to suspend. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. Mrs. Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to second that motion for suspension.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Colburn to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion to adopt. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Resolution Number 13, 2022.
Thank you. And Mrs. Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. President. I second that motion for adoption.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Colburn to adopt Resolution Number 13-2022. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Ordinance number 14-2022, presented by Mr. Heidick. Title, Authorized Payments, ScanWorks. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay an invoice to ScanWorks in the amount of $36,806.49 for a scanning project in the Clerk of Court's office and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Motion to suspend, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. Mrs. Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. President. I second that motion for suspension.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Colburn to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion to adopt, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Ordinance Number 14-2022.
Thank you. Mrs. Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. President. President. I second that motion for adoption.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Colburn to adopt ordinance number 14-2022. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Mrs. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 15-2022, presented by Mrs. Fry. Title, Prosecutorial Contract, City of Green. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3-year contract with the City of Green, whereby the law department will provide prosecutorial services to the City of Green commencing January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. This will go for 3 readings or until the contract is signed.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 16-2022, presented by Mrs. Fry. Title, Prosecutorial Agreement, City of New Franklin. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3-year agreement with the City of New Franklin, whereby the law department will provide prosecutorial services to the City of New Franklin commencing January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. This will also go for 3 readings or until the contract is signed.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 17-2022, presented by Mrs. Fry. Title, Prosecutorial Administrative Agreement, City of Norton. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3-year agreement with the City of Norton, whereby the law department will provide prosecutorial administrative services to the City of Norton commencing January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. This will also go 3 readings or until the contract is signed.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 18-2022, presented by Mrs. Thompson. Title, Amending Barberton's Codified Ordinance, Chapter 1462, ICC International Property Maintenance Code. An ordinance amending the ordinance number 126-2020 to amend the Barberton Codified Ordinances, Chapter 1462.06, amendments to follow updated versions of the International Property Maintenance Code, IPMC.
All right, motion to suspend. Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. And Mrs. Angela?
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion for suspension.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mrs. Angeloff to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion to adopt. Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of ordinance number 18-2022.
Thank you. And Mrs. Angela?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second the motion to adopt.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mrs. Angeloff to adopt ordinance number 18-2022. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Resolution number 19-2022, presented by Mrs. Angela. Title, Enter into Contract, ODOT Final Resolution. A final resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the rehabilitation of Worcester Road between 4th Street and Robinson Avenue and the Worcester Road Robinson Avenue intersection, including roadway narrowing, resurfacing, paving repair, curb, sidewalk, cub ramps, drainage, waterwork, lighting, signage, pavement, markings, and traffic signals, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Motion to suspend. Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. And Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion for suspension.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Angeloff and seconded by Mrs. Bailey to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Mrs. Frye?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Motion to adopt. Mrs. Angeloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Resolution 19-2022 be adopted.
Thank you. And Mrs. Bailey?
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion for adoption.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Angeloff and seconded by Mrs. Bailey to adopt resolution number 19-2022. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Frye?
Yes.
Ordinance number 20-2022, presented by Mr. Heidick. Title, 2022 Operating and Capital Budget. An ordinance adopting a budget for various funds of the City of Barberton for the period beginning January 1st, 2022, and providing for the administration thereof and declaring it an emergency. This will also go for 3 readings.
Thank you. Second readings of ordinances and resolutions.
We have none.
Third readings of ordinances and resolutions.
Resolution number 4-2022, presented by Mrs. Angela. Title, Barberton Complete Streets Policy. A resolution of the Council of the City of Barberton to enact a Barberton Complete Streets Policy to create a livable, complete, and walkable street, to aid the City of Barberton personnel in the development, implementation, and future use of livable, complete, and walkable streets for future City of Barberton construction projects within the public right-of-way.
Thank you. Motion to adopt. Mrs. Angela?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Resolution 4-2022 be adopted as amended.
Thank you. And Mrs. Bailey?
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion for suspension. Oh,
Adoption.
no, sorry. I second the motion for adoption.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Angeloff and seconded by Mrs. Bailey to adopt resolution number 4-2022. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Mrs. Frye?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Thank
This
you.
ends the third reading.
Awesome. Appointments.
The City of Barberton's Planning Commission. Mr. Anthony Harmon, to begin immediately to fill the unexpired term of Mrs. Taylor Thompson, ending December 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to appoint Mr. Harmon? Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Anthony Harmon to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. And Mrs. Angeloff?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second that motion to appoint Mr. Harmon to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mrs. Angeloff to appoint Mr. Anthony Harmon to the City of Barberton's Planning Commission. Are there any remarks? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adoption carries.
Mr. Keith Holcomb, to begin immediately to fill an unexpired term of Miss Mariah Cheatham Williams, ending December 31st, 2023, to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to appoint Mr. I apologize, Holcomb? Holcomb. Do I have a motion to appoint Mr. Holcomb to fill the unexpired term of Mrs. Mariah Cheatham Williams? Thank you. I'm so confused on my paper right now. It's not even funny. Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Keith Holcomb to fill the unexpired term of Mrs. Mariah Cheatham Williams, ending 12/31/23 on the City of Barberton's Planning Commission.
Thank you. And Mrs. Angela?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second that motion to appoint Keith Holcomb to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mrs. Angeloff to appoint Mr. Keith Holcomb to the City of Barberton's Planning Commission. Are there any remarks? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Adopt or motion carries.
The City of Barberton's Chief Building Officer is a person to be announced, to hire as soon as possible, new, full-time, at pay grade 7, step 9.
Do I have a motion to hire this new full-time employee for the position of Chief Building Officer at pay grade 7, step 9? Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion to authorize a hire as soon as possible for new full-time pay grade 7, step 9.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to second Mr. Heidick's motion.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Thompson to hire this new full-time employee for the position of Chief Building Officer at pay grade 7, step 9. Are there any remarks? I just want to say that per the Ordinance 132-2007, non-bargaining pay plan procedure, C, hiring, 1, if the appointing authority chooses to hire an employee in the pay grade 7, 8, or 9, or at a step higher than 6, it requires the City of Council's approval with 7 affirmative votes. Please, clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mrs. Frye?
Yes.
Mrs. Angela?
Yes.
Mrs. Coburn?
Yes.
Mr. Jaber?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries. Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have a liquor license. It is a transfer to the Diaz Barberton LLC at 71 Fifth Street Southeast Barberton from Capitalist Corp., doing business as Thanos Family Restaurant. That same address, 71 Fifth Street Southeast, Barberton. It is a D5. Emails went to Mr. Griffin, Mrs. Doherty, and Chief Norber. I received no objections.
Thank you. Communications from the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. You may have seen in the paper where Metro RTA has reached a tentative agreement with the Transportation Workers Union. Late last week, the final vote by Metro Board of Trustees will happen this Wednesday. So we've been following this as obviously any disruption in the busing throughout the county, and especially here in Barberton, based on negotiations could have catastrophic consequences for not only our residents but our businesses as their employees use the system. So very happy that the deal was reached. This has been going on for a few months. Negotiations are never an easy thing, but that should be solidified this Wednesday with a vote. Working with the Barberton Community Foundation and Bounce Innovation Hub, a scholarship for Barberton residents has been established at Bounce. Bounce is a great asset in the region, helping small businesses and entrepreneurs. We've been engaged with Bounce for the past 10 years on various levels, and they've been working with our schools, and now a scholarship for Barberton residents has been established there, so through the foundation. So this will help Barberton residents with small businesses. And, if you haven't been to Bounce, I encourage you to take a look at it. We went several years ago to Bounce and several other incubators in the area as far away as Youngstown. And everyone's got a little different model of Bounce. They're all successful at different levels as well. So Bounce is definitely one to model the incubator after. Thank you, Council, for passing Resolution 19-2022. The final resolution or ordinance for Worcester Road West reconstruction project. We were granted funds for this several years ago, 5 to 6 years ago. So it's nice to see that this is continuing to move forward. And this is a major positive for the community. So it's going to be Worcester Road West from approximately 3rd Street, McDonald's Post Office area, all the way to Hudson Run. Total reconstruction. And then they're going to resurface from Hudson Run to 31st Street Johnson's Corners. So Uncle Sam's picking up 80% of the cost, so can't turn that down. So resurfacing, curbs, sidewalks, everything, so it's going to be done really well. And I can anticipate complaints because of detours. So. But that comes with the territories. With that, I'm happy to announce that the city has also been approved for another resurfacing project here in town. Recently, we received the word from federal funding through AMATS. It's basically an 88% to 12% local match split. This is for Norton Avenue from Barber Road to the corporate limit over in Norton. So, like these projects, like Worcester Road West, it's been approved, the money's been secured, but the project won't come to fruition until around 2026. So that's how these programs work. But you got to keep looking at not just tomorrow, but you got to look, years down the road. So very excited about that.
I just wanted to ask, Worcester Road's not going to be 2026, is it?
No, Worcester Road, they've already started some of the painting, engineering, and so you see pink lines, they were out last summer.
Okay.
Doing a lot of
I
that.
thought it was going to be a lot sooner, but I thought, oh God, did it get pushed back?
Yeah, don't push this one back.
So almost $500,000 in federal funding for Norton Avenue from Barber Road to the corporate limit, so. Okay, sir.
Yes, sir. Back to the Worcester Road. Before we brought up how we might do a one-way street between the post office, Box 7, and McDonald's. Is that still in the same?
It's not a part of the project, but we're going to put it during the same year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that'll be a one-way street?
It'll be one way on 3rd Street between the post office and McDonald's going northbound. Years ago, there was a stoplight at that intersection on Worcester that was removed. I venture to say 20 years ago, I don't know. So it's pretty difficult to make a left off of 3rd Street on the Worcester Road going eastbound. So we're going to make that one way for that one block.
And then, just while we're on there, would parking be on both sides or just the left side for parking?
We're looking at different options. The post office, it's tough to find parking for the post office, and it's kind of a shooting gallery if you're parking the street. So we're looking at different options. So we're not sure. I know there'll be at least parking on the east side of the street. But do we expand the parking, the sidewalk and the parking for the post office into the street? So we're looking at those different things.
Thank you. I had a couple businesses ask about that. Thank you.
Change for Change this month will be at the Barberton Leartoffel benefiting the Magical Theater. I believe that's next Friday, the 25th. We've been working with the Barberton Community Foundation and others, and I'm excited to announce that the Community Needs Assessment Survey will be active very soon. It might be live now. We're working with the foundation. They've got a community needs survey. It's not out now. It will be very soon. They want to generate as much feedback and insight from residents and businesses as possible so we can continue to collaborate with them and start focusing on some of the needs in the community. My first open office hours for 22 will be Saturday, March 5th at the Active Adult Center from 9 a.m. till 11, no appointment necessary. And all COVID protocols will be followed. I'm not sure what those will be by that time, but we'll follow them. And then lastly, City Council will be meeting next week on Tuesday due to the city building being closed for President's Day on Monday. And I guess that wasn't the last thing, just happy Valentine's Day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there anything from the body? Mr. Jaber?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to let our council members know, I'm still working with Mr. Trevor Hunt about the city properties, the residential vacant land. I met with him about 2-3 weeks ago, and I'm still waiting for him to give me some information back, how we can move the process forward in selling those properties, or even talk to the residents, see if we can work it out, like something like Akron did, Summit County. And I think it'll be a big step in being on the chair of city property. That's going to be one of my biggest goals this year, is just try to work with that and push that forward so it can be easier process for the residents who do want the properties next door to them. And with that, I pass, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Is there anything else from council, the body? department heads. As the mayor mentioned, we meet on the 22nd because of President's Day, so that's Tuesday next week. And again, happy Valentine's Day. I was going to say happy Halloween, but happy Valentine's Day. Seeing nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would second Mr. Heidick's motion to adjourn.
Thank you. It was moved by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Thompson that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Didn't think so. We are now adjourned at 7:59 PM. Thank you.
It has to be one of the special.
Oh, definitely.